There's something undeniably raw about being alone. It's quiet, vulnerable, and often scary. In a world that celebrates hustle, noise, and connection, being alone can feel like a failure, like you're missing something everyone else seems to have figured out. But what if I told you that some of the most powerful transformations begin not when we're surrounded, but when we're stripped down, completely alone? Being strong when you're alone doesn't mean denying your pain or pretending you're not scared. It means holding space for your vulnerability, choosing to be present with your fears, and learning to stand tall, not because someone else is cheering you on, but because you know deep down that you are enough. We often believe strength is about putting on a brave face, about pushing through pain with grit and determination. But real strength, it begins with truth, with looking in the mirror and saying, I'm not okay right now, and letting that be okay. Honesty is the foundation of inner strength, because you can't heal or grow from a place you're unwilling to admit exists. When you're alone, there's no one to perform for. That can be terrifying. The silence confronts you with everything you've been avoiding: memories, doubts, insecurities. But in that silence lies the first invitation, to be radically honest with yourself. What are you feeling? What are you fearing? What are you carrying that no longer serves you? Strength doesn't demand you fix everything right away. It simply asks you to see clearly. Naming your reality is a courageous act. Saying I feel abandoned or I feel lost isn't weakness, it's clarity. And with clarity, we can start to navigate. You can't move through something if you're still pretending it's not there. There's a kind of relief in admitting you're not okay. It softens the edges of your struggle. It says, I don't need to hold this all together for anyone else. In solitude, you are gifted the sacred space to fall apart a little, and that unraveling, that's often where healing begins. Being honest with yourself also means owning your needs. Maybe you need rest. Maybe you need a boundary. Maybe you need to grieve something you've been avoiding. These are not signs of failure. They're signs of self-awareness, which is the truest kind of strength. And here's the truth. The more you practice self-honesty, the stronger you become. Not because the pain vanishes, but because your relationship with it changes. You stop running. You stop numbing. You start listening. That's the power of solitude. It tunes you into the sound of your own soul. Let's remember that strength is not measured by how little you feel. It's measured by your capacity to hold space for everything you feel without judgment, without shame. The inner work done in solitude is quiet, but it's revolutionary. The most honest conversations you'll ever have are the ones you have when no one else is around. So when you're alone and everything feels uncertain, don't look for the exit. Look for the truth. It's there waiting for you, not to scare you, but to free you. And once you touch that truth, you're no longer powerless. You're aware, and that is where your real strength begins. Strength isn't about always feeling confident, fearless, or in control. In fact, one of the greatest myths we've been taught is that strength means hiding our truth. We're told to stay strong, as if that means pushing down our pain, smiling through heartbreak, and acting like everything is fine. But real strength begins with honesty, the kind that's uncomfortable, vulnerable, and painfully human. The kind that whispers, I'm not okay, when the world expects us to be unshakable. Being alone gives you the rare opportunity to face yourself without distractions. There's no performance, no applause, no validation, just you in your rawest state, and that can be terrifying. But it's also where the truth starts to rise. In those quiet moments, your soul starts to speak. It says, you're exhausted. It says, you're carrying pain that doesn't belong to you. It says, you miss someone or you haven't felt safe in a long time. Listening to that truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is the first act of real strength. It takes incredible courage to be honest about what's happening inside you. The world around us rewards the illusion of control. We get praised for being composed, for achieving, for holding it together. But when we strip all of that away and sit with our pain, unfiltered and unmasked, we're engaging in a radical form of self-respect. We're telling ourselves, you deserve to be heard, even when no one else is listening. Sometimes honesty means admitting you're scared, of failing, of being alone forever, of not being enough. It's not weak to acknowledge that fear. It's brave, because the moment you stop pretending, you start healing. Honesty opens the door to growth, and no growth isn't always graceful. It's messy, it's confusing, It's often uncomfortable, but it's real. And being real is stronger than being perfect. Honesty also means acknowledging the parts of yourself that you've rejected, the grief you minimized, the anger you weren't allowed to feel, the dreams you buried to make others comfortable. Strength begins when you stop editing yourself for the sake of acceptance. Alone, you can begin to reclaim those pieces without apology. You can tell yourself the truth without worrying how it sounds to anyone else. This kind of self-honesty is quiet, but powerful. It doesn't come with loud declarations or dramatic breakthroughs. It's found in small, sacred moments, sitting with your sadness instead of running from it, admitting that you're tired of pretending or recognizing that something needs to change. It's found in the pause before you reach for distraction, in the breath you take before choosing to feel instead of numb. The truth will not always feel good. Sometimes it hurts more than the lie ever did. But strength isn't about feeling good all the time. It's about being willing to feel fully. Honesty teaches you to stop fighting reality and start facing it. And when you do that, you don't just survive solitude. You begin to transform in it. You begin to rebuild, not from a place of illusion, but from the solid ground of what's real. When you tell yourself the truth, you stop needing others to define it for you. You stop outsourcing your worth, your healing, and your identity. And though it may feel like breaking at first, that break often reveals the strength that was buried beneath the performance all along. Because the truth doesn't just set you free, it makes you fierce. It gives you root. We've been taught to armor up, to protect ourselves from pain by pretending it doesn't exist. Somewhere along the way, vulnerability became a dirty word. It was equated with weakness, fragility, even failure. We learned to equate being open with being in danger. But the truth is, vulnerability isn't weakness. Vulnerability is courage in motion. It's the decision to show up not despite fear or uncertainty, but with them. To be alone and still choose to stay emotionally present, that's a radical act of bravery. You see, when you're surrounded by people, you can distract yourself. You can lean on noise. But when you're truly alone, your emotional armor gets heavy. You start to feel the weight of all the things you've been trying to hold together. And this is where vulnerability asks for permission to enter. It doesn't scream. It doesn't force its way in. It whispers, will you let yourself be seen, even just by you? There is nothing soft or passive about vulnerability. It's the quiet decision to sit with your shame, to admit you're hurting, to name what you need, even if no one else is around to meet that need. Vulnerability says, it's me, unfiltered, raw, real. And that's terrifying because we fear being rejected, even by ourselves. But the beautiful paradox is this. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we actually begin to feel stronger. Not because we fix the pain, but because we stop running from it. It takes far more strength to feel your emotions than to suppress them. We often think we're strong when we don't cry, when we tough it out, when we push forward as if nothing affects us. But that's not strength. That's survival mode. Real strength lies in letting yourself weep when something breaks. It lies in acknowledging the wound instead of covering it with a smile. So it's endure. Vulnerability says, I refuse to pretend I'm not human. Being alone offers a sacred opportunity to reconnect with that humanness. Without the need to impress, defend, or prove, you're left with the truest version of yourself. And in that version, you're not just your victories. You're your doubts, your grief, your healing and progress. Vulnerability invites you to sit with that complexity, to stop striving to be enough and start recognizing that you already are. Letting your guard down doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're finally giving in to the truth, to the present, to the ache that needs acknowledgement. You can't outrun your emotions forever. Eventually, they catch up in whispers or in screams. Vulnerability lets them speak before they have to shout. It says, I'm listening. I'm here. I won't abandon myself, even in discomfort. Some of the most profound moments of growth happen in solitude, not when we're conquering something, but when we're crumbling and choosing to stay with ourselves anyway. Vulnerability isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. It's choosing to feel deeply instead of shutting down. It's the moment you say, I don't have to be strong in the way the world defines it. I can be strong in my softness too. So when you're alone and your heart feels like it's unraveling, remember, this is not weakness. This is your brave becoming visible. This is the sacred space where healing begins, not through perfection or performance, but through presence. Vulnerability is the birthplace of strength, the ground zero of true courage. There's a deep and often confusing distinction between being lonely and being alone. At first glance, they look the same. Both are quiet. Both are void of company. Both can stir discomfort. But one is rooted in emptiness, while the other can hold depth, clarity, even peace. Loneliness is the ache of disconnection. Aloneness is the art of self-connection. Understanding the difference changes everything. Loneliness whispers that something is missing. It feeds on comparison, on the belief that everyone else is living, laughing, connecting without you. It thrives in the stories we tell ourselves. I'm not wanted. I've been left behind. I'm not lovable. It's painful because it's rooted in separation, not just from others, but often from ourselves. Loneliness creates a hunger we don't always know how to feed. Aloneness, on the other hand, is not a deficiency. It's a state of being with yourself, not to escape others, but to return to you. It's an invitation to turn inward rather than reaching outward for validation, noise, or distraction. Aloneness says, there is something here for me. It's not always comfortable, but it's deeply honest. It's where silence becomes a teacher, not a punishment. We live in a world that romanticizes constant connection. Our value often feels tied to who's texting us back, how many friends we have, or how full our calendar is. So when the phone is quiet or the room is empty, we panic. We assume something is wrong. But solitude doesn't mean you've been abandoned. It might mean you're being called back to yourself. There's something powerful about choosing aloneness, not because no one's around, but because you understand the importance of being still, being centered, being whole on your own. It's the space where you meet the parts of yourself that get drowned out by noise. The quiet longings, the tired truths, the inner wisdom that only speaks when you slow down enough to listen. When we confuse loneliness with aloneness, we often run from solitude. We fill it with distractions. Endless scrolling, binge watching, overworking, anything to avoid the discomfort of being with ourselves. But in doing so, we miss the chance to deepen our self-awareness. We miss the clarity that only silence can bring. We miss the strength that emerges when we realize, I am enough, even here, even now. Loneliness asks, why isn't anyone here with me? Aloneness asks, why have I left myself? It's a shift from abandonment to presence, from needing someone else to validate your existence to learning to sit in your own presence without fear. And the more you practice it, the more you realize, being alone isn't something to survive. It's something to honor. There's healing in aloneness. There's space to breathe, to grieve, to rediscover joy on your own terms. The fear of loneliness often lessens when we stop seeing it as a flaw and start recognizing it as a signal. Not a signal that we're broken, but that we're being invited into deeper intimacy with ourselves. That kind of intimacy, when nurtured, becomes a quiet power that no one can take away.